She had always loved being a nurse. From the first day she stepped into the hospital, she felt that she had found her purpose. Every morning she put on her uniform with pride, ready to care for people who needed her. She loved the feeling of helping someone feel better, even in small ways. Sometimes it was just holding a hand while a patient was scared. Other times it was giving medicine or helping someone recover after surgery. She never thought of it as a job, it was more like a calling. She believed that being a nurse meant more than treating illnesses. It meant caring for the whole person, listening to their worries and making them feel safe when everything around them felt uncertain. Her life had not been easy. She had worked long shifts, sometimes 12 hours straight, often missing family gatherings and personal plans. But she never complained. She believed that what she was doing mattered. Even when she returned home exhausted, with her feet aching and her mind full of worries about her patients, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Nursing gave her a purpose, and that purpose kept her going through difficult days. But life, as it often does, took an unexpected turn. One morning she arrived at the hospital ready for her shift, only to be called into the manager's office. The air felt heavy. She had a small, uneasy feeling in her chest, but she tried to stay calm. The manager's words hit her like a sudden storm. The hospital was going through restructuring. Many positions were being cut. She had lost her job. She felt numb. The words echoed in her mind. "We're letting you go. Your last day is today." She had given years of her life to this hospital. She had worked late nights, holidays, and weekends. She had cared for hundreds of patients, sometimes in situations where no one else could handle the stress. And now it was all over. She had no warning, no chance to say goodbye properly, no time to prepare. As she walked out of the office, she tried to hold back the tears. The hospital corridors, which had always felt like a place of purpose and hope, now seemed cold and distant. Her uniform felt heavier than ever, as if it were a reminder of all the hard work she had done, and all the work she would no longer be doing. She wondered what she would do next. How would she pay her bills? How would she support herself and her family? The questions swirled in her mind, and for the first time in many years she felt afraid for the future. She walked home slowly, her steps heavy. The streets were busy, filled with people going about their daily lives. Yet she felt completely invisible, as if she were moving through a world that no longer recognized her. She passed shops with smiling employees, children playing in parks, and neighbors chatting on sidewalks, but none of it seemed to matter. Her mind was consumed with worry. She thought about rent, groceries, and the countless small expenses that added up to a mountain she now had to climb alone. By the time she reached her modest apartment, exhaustion had settled into her bones. She sank onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. She didn't know how long she sat there, letting the silence press in around her. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. She thought about all the patients she had cared for, the gratitude in their eyes, the small gestures of thanks she had received over the years. For a moment she felt a pang of regret, wishing she could go back and do more, wishing she could somehow undo this sudden loss. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from a close friend. "Are you okay?" she read. She typed a quick reply. "I don't know. I lost my job today." She hit send and leaned back, feeling the tears come. She had been strong for so long, always helping others, always putting their needs first. But now, alone in her apartment, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of her situation. That evening, she decided to take a walk. Fresh air might help clear her mind, she thought. She wrapped a scarf around her neck and stepped outside. The city was alive with its usual energy. Cars honked, people rushed past, and streetlights flickered on one by one. She walked slowly, observing everything around her, but feeling disconnected from it all. She tried to think about the future, but it seemed impossible. Every path she considered felt blocked. As she walked past a small park, she noticed children playing on the swings and people sitting on benches, enjoying the cool evening air. She watched a father push his daughter on the swing, her laughter ringing through the park. She smiled faintly, a small flicker of warmth in an otherwise difficult day. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a future where things were better, where she found another job, where she could keep helping people. But the thought was fragile, easily swallowed by the reality of her current struggles. Continuing her walk, she passed a busy street corner where an elderly gentleman was trying to cross the road. He looked unsteady, and something about his movements made her heart tighten. She quickened her pace slightly, feeling a sense of concern. The city moved around her in a blur, people hurrying past without noticing the small dramas unfolding around them. She thought about how life could change in a single moment, how quickly someone's world could shift, and she shivered. She arrived home and made a simple dinner, but the food tasted bland. She picked at it without much interest, her mind racing with worries. She went to bed early, hoping sleep would bring some relief, but her thoughts kept her awake. She thought about her colleagues at the hospital, her patients, and the life she had devoted herself to. Losing her job felt like losing a part of herself. She wondered how she would rebuild, how she would find stability again. The night was long and restless. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that might happen. Despite the fear and uncertainty, a small part of her refused to give up. She had faced challenges before, had seen patients recover against the odds, had faced life and death situations with calm and courage. If she could survive those, perhaps she could survive this too. The next morning she woke with a heavy heart but a quiet determination. She knew she had to face the world again, even if it was frightening. She put on her coat and stepped outside, taking a deep breath. The city was waking up, the streets slowly filling with people going about their routines. She walked with no particular destination in mind, just moving forward one step at a time. Little did she know that the day ahead would be completely unexpected. A simple walk through her neighborhood, something she did every day without thought, was about to change everything. And in the next few hours she would face a moment that would test her skills, courage, and heart in a way she never imagined. A moment that would remind her why she became a nurse in the first place, and why her compassion and bravery could never be measured by a job title or a paycheck. The day she lost her job was the day she thought her world had ended. But the universe had plans that she could not yet see. Her life, though uncertain now, was about to take a turn that would show her that kindness, courage, and a willingness to help others were treasures that no one could ever take away. And as she walked down the familiar streets, her mind heavy but her heart still beating with care, she remained unaware that within the next 24 hours, an ordinary act of bravery would put her back on a path she could never have imagined. A path where her selflessness would be recognized, appreciated, and rewarded in ways beyond anything she could dream of. The morning sun had barely risen when she decided to step outside for a walk. The previous day's events, losing her job, feeling helpless, and staring at the ceiling late into the night, were still fresh in her mind. She needed to clear her thoughts, to feel the rhythm of the world outside and remind herself that life continued even when everything seemed uncertain. The streets were quiet at first, with only a few early risers hurrying to catch buses or opening their small shops. She walked slowly, breathing in the cool morning air, trying to shake off the lingering sadness. Every step felt deliberate, as though she was walking not just through the city but through her own tangled thoughts. She knew she had to find strength within herself. Losing her job had been a blow, but she had survived hard times before, and she could survive this too. As she turned a corner near a small park, she noticed a crowd gathering at the edge of the sidewalk. Her instincts immediately pulled her closer. A man, elderly and frail, was struggling to stand. One of his legs seemed weak and his hands trembled as he tried to steady himself. The people around him looked unsure, hesitating to intervene. Some whispered to each other while others pulled out their phones, recording the scene. Her heart tightened. Without thinking twice, she pushed through the crowd and reached him. The man's face was pale, his breathing shallow. She could see the fear in his eyes. "Sir, can you hear me?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. He tried to speak but could only manage a faint gasp. Her training kicked in immediately. She knelt beside him, gently supporting his back and checking his pulse. Her mind worked quickly, scanning through all the possible situations. It was clear he was in serious trouble. She called out to someone nearby. "Please, call an ambulance now." "Quickly!" A young man ran off to make the call, while she focused on the gentleman in front of her. Her hands moved instinctively, performing CPR in a rhythm she had practiced countless times before, even when her own exhaustion from life's struggles threatened to shake her focus. Time seemed to stretch and compress at the same moment. Every heartbeat, every breath she took felt magnified. The people around them formed a circle, watching silently. Some whispered prayers, others murmured encouragement, but she blocked out everything except the man and the task at hand. She had done this many times at the hospital. But doing it on the street, in the open, with strangers watching, added a new layer of pressure. She could feel the man slipping, his body weakening beneath her hands. She did not panic. She could not. Panic was a luxury she did not have. Her mind remained focused, assessing each movement, adjusting her technique, checking for signs of life. Minutes felt like hours, but she continued without hesitation. She reminded herself silently that every second counted. This was not just about medical skill. It was about presence, calmness, and refusing to give up. Finally, the ambulance arrived. Paramedics rushed forward, taking over from her. But not before she gave them a full report of the situation. She stepped back, allowing them space to work, her hands still shaking slightly from the adrenaline. She watched as they loaded him onto a stretcher, the man's face showing signs of stabilization. Relief washed over her, a deep, quiet sense of accomplishment mixed with lingering worry. She knew he was in good hands now, but the thought of what could have happened if she had hesitated made her stomach tighten. After the ambulance drove away, the crowd began to disperse, murmuring words of praise and admiration. Some approached her, offering thanks, shaking her hand or patting her shoulder. She smiled politely, but it all felt a little overwhelming. She was not used to being the center of attention. Helping people had always been her duty, not something to be celebrated. Still, a small warmth grew in her chest. Despite the fear and uncertainty she had faced in the past 24 hours, she had made a difference in someone's life. As she walked home, her mind replayed the events over and over. She thought about the man's pale face, the way his hands had trembled, the shallow rise and fall of his chest. She felt a mix of pride and humility. She had saved a life, yet she knew she had been fortunate that everything had aligned perfectly. The ambulance, her quick response, her training. She realized that sometimes life gives you moments that test you in ways you cannot anticipate, and sometimes it rewards courage and readiness in ways you could never expect. Back in her small apartment, she sat on the couch, her body tired but her spirit strangely energized. She poured herself a cup of tea and stared out the window, thinking about what had just happened. The city moved around her, people living their ordinary lives, unaware of the drama she had just been part of. She felt a sense of connection to the world around her, a reminder that even in her darkest moments, she could still make a real difference. As she sipped her tea, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Curious, she opened it. The message was from the family of the man she had helped. They wanted to thank her personally, expressing deep gratitude for saving their father's life. They described how worried they had been, how much they had feared losing him, and how her quick action had changed everything. She felt her eyes well up with tears. She had never expected this kind of response. For years she had cared for countless patients, but she had never received such a heartfelt acknowledgement. The day passed slowly after that, but her mind kept returning to the encounter. She thought about the fragility of life, how quickly it could change, and how small acts of courage could have enormous impact. She reflected on her own situation, losing her job, feeling uncertain about the future, and realized that even in her personal struggles, she still had the power to make a difference. It was a comforting thought, a reminder that her worth was not defined solely by employment or financial stability. In the evening, as she prepared a simple dinner, she thought about the man she had saved and the family who had reached out. She imagined the relief on their faces, the gratitude in their voices, and it filled her with a quiet joy. She realized that this encounter had not just helped them, it had helped her as well. It reminded her of why she had become a nurse in the first place, the desire to help, to care, and to bring comfort in moments of fear and uncertainty. As night fell, she sat by her window looking out at the city lights. The world felt both vast and intimate at the same time. She knew that tomorrow might bring new challenges, new obstacles, but she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had faced uncertainty and fear head-on, and she had emerged not only unbroken but stronger and more confident. The knowledge that she had saved a life gave her a sense of hope she hadn't felt in days. She drifted off to sleep that night with a quiet smile. Though she had lost her job and faced the harsh reality of financial strain, she had gained something far more valuable, the reassurance that she could rise to the occasion, that her skills and compassion mattered, and that even in the most ordinary moments, extraordinary things could happen. Little did she know, her act of bravery was about to ripple far beyond her imagination. What she had seen as a simple morning walk, a spontaneous act of kindness, was about to open doors in her life she had never dreamed of. The gratitude of one man and his family would soon become a chain reaction, reaching far beyond the streets she walked every day, changing her world in ways she could never have anticipated. And as she slept, the city continued its rhythm, unaware that a quiet hero had walked its streets that day, saving a life and unknowingly setting the stage for a life-changing turn of events that would come just 24 hours later. The morning after her act of courage, she woke with a strange mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. Her body ached from the events of the previous day, but her mind was alive with memories of the man she had helped. She had not expected recognition or reward. She had only acted out of instinct and compassion. Yet she could not shake a feeling that something unusual was beginning to unfold. As she sipped her morning tea, her phone buzzed repeatedly. At first she ignored it, assuming it was just calls from friends checking in. But when she looked, she noticed multiple missed calls and several messages. Most were from unknown numbers. Hesitantly, she opened the first message. It was from the family of the elderly gentleman she had saved. They wanted to meet her in person to express their gratitude. They had invited her to their home later that afternoon. She felt a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. She dressed carefully, not knowing what to expect. She chose simple, modest clothing, nothing flashy. She didn't want to draw attention, even though she already felt the weight of attention growing around her actions. As she walked to the designated meeting place, she reflected on the previous day. Saving the man's life had been instinctual, almost automatic. But now, seeing how deeply his family appreciated her, she realized that her small act had caused a ripple far larger than she could have imagined. When she arrived, the family greeted her warmly. Their eyes held a mix of relief, admiration, and gratitude. They thanked her again and again, their voices trembling with emotion. They shared stories about the gentleman, how he had been struggling with health problems, how worried they had been, and how her quick actions had prevented what could have been a tragedy. She listened quietly, feeling both humbled and overwhelmed. She had never thought her life-saving skills would be needed outside the hospital setting in such a public, high-stakes moment. As the conversation continued, she noticed a subtle change in the family's demeanor. Their admiration went beyond simple gratitude. They were impressed by her calmness, her knowledge, and the courage she had shown. They spoke about how rare it was to find someone so selfless in today's world. Hearing this, she felt a strange warmth in her heart. She had always believed in helping others, but hearing someone else recognize it as extraordinary made her feel valued in a way she hadn't in a long time. After some discussion, the family insisted she accept a small token of appreciation. She politely declined at first, saying that she had only done what anyone in her position would have done. But they were insistent. Finally, she accepted a modest gift, a gesture to symbolize their gratitude. She felt a mix of embarrassment and pride. She had never done anything for rewards, yet accepting this small gift made her feel connected to the lives she had touched. When she returned home later that day, she felt a subtle shift inside her. The recognition, though not overwhelming, made her realize that her actions had consequences far beyond what she could see. She began to think differently about her own struggles. Losing her job was still painful, but the morning's events reminded her that she still had value, skills, and a heart capable of influencing lives. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, a reminder that her worth was not defined by employment or salary, but by her actions and character. That evening, she checked her social media accounts, almost on a whim. To her surprise, posts about her heroism had started to circulate. People who had witnessed the events shared videos and photos, praising her courage and skill. Comments poured in from strangers expressing admiration, gratitude, and even awe. Some called her a hero. Others spoke about how inspiring it was to see someone act selflessly in a world often driven by self-interest. She scrolled slowly, overwhelmed by the sudden attention. She had never sought recognition, but she could not help feeling touched by the appreciation of so many. The next few days were a blur. News outlets caught wind of the story and began calling her for interviews. Local newspapers ran articles highlighting her bravery and professionalism. Some journalists came to her home, asking to tell her story, to capture her experience in her own words. She hesitated at first, unsure if she wanted such attention. But she realized that sharing her story might inspire others, showing that simple acts of courage and compassion could make a profound difference. Reluctantly, she agreed. During one of the interviews, she spoke softly, emphasizing that anyone could act in such a situation if they had the knowledge and willingness to help. She explained the steps she had taken to stabilize the man, but she also focused on the emotional aspect, how important it was to stay calm, to be present, and to act quickly. Her words resonated with viewers. People wrote to her, thanking her for the advice, sharing stories of their own experiences, and expressing admiration for her courage. She realized that her actions had sparked something larger, a reminder to the world that ordinary people could make extraordinary differences. Meanwhile, the elderly gentleman she had saved continued to recover under medical care. His family visited her occasionally, updating her on his progress. Each visit brought renewed warmth and connection. She saw the difference she had made not just medically but emotionally. The family's fear had turned into relief and gratitude. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, more profound than any praise or reward could give. The bond she had formed with them reminded her why she had chosen nursing as a profession. It was not for money, recognition, or fame. It was for moments like these when she could step into someone's life and change it forever. Word of her heroism spread beyond the immediate community. Friends of the family shared the story with colleagues, some of whom had connections to influential people. Soon she began receiving unexpected invitations from charitable organizations, healthcare groups, and even local community leaders to speak about her experience. She felt overwhelmed by the attention, but also recognized the opportunity to influence positive change. She had faced personal setbacks, yet her actions had opened doors she had never dreamed of. Despite the growing recognition, she remained humble. She knew that her act had been a single moment in a long life of service. She had faced hardships, fatigue, and personal challenges, yet she had still acted with courage. She wanted the world to know that heroism did not always come in grand gestures. Often it came in quiet, unassuming acts of care, performed when no one was looking. She shared this message repeatedly in interviews and posts, hoping to inspire others to act selflessly in their own lives. As the days passed, she noticed another shift in her life. People she had never met began reaching out, not for fame or publicity, but for genuine connection. Strangers offered help, shared opportunities, or simply expressed gratitude for her example. She realized that kindness and courage had a way of multiplying. Her single act of bravery had created ripples far beyond her imagination, touching lives in ways she had not anticipated. The nurse reflected on her personal journey. Losing her job had been devastating, a moment that had left her feeling lost and uncertain. But that loss had also led to a moment of opportunity, an opportunity to demonstrate her true character, to act with compassion under pressure, and to influence lives in profound ways. She understood now that setbacks could lead to unexpected blessings, that courage and selflessness often opened doors in ways money or status could not. By the end of the week, she had become a quiet local celebrity, known not just for saving a life, but for the humility and compassion she had shown. She received letters, calls, and messages from people thanking her, asking for advice, and expressing admiration. She continued to focus on the human side of her work, helping, supporting, and inspiring others, not because it brought fame, but because it was the essence of who she was. And though she still faced uncertainty about her career, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her worth was not tied to a job title or paycheck, but to her ability to act with courage, empathy, and skill. The recognition she had received was rewarding, yes, but the deeper satisfaction came from knowing that she had changed someone's life when it mattered most. Little did she know, the next 24 hours would bring an even greater surprise, an unexpected reward that would further change her life in ways she had never imagined. The gratitude of one family, the admiration of a community, and the recognition from strangers had set the stage for a life-altering turn. Her quiet heroism was about to intersect with fortune and opportunity, creating a moment that would redefine her journey and reward her in ways far beyond what she could foresee. And as she prepared for bed that night, reflecting on the whirlwind of events, she felt a calm certainty that acts of courage, kindness, and selflessness never go unnoticed. Even when the world seems indifferent, she drifted to sleep, unaware that her life was about to change dramatically, all because she had chosen to act when it mattered most. The morning started quietly, as she went about her usual routine. After the whirlwind of recognition from the previous days, she had begun to feel slightly more at ease. She still worried about her job loss, but there was a new sense of hope that had quietly settled into her heart. Little did she know, that very day would bring an event she could never have imagined, something that would change her life completely. As she stepped outside to fetch the newspaper, she noticed something unusual. 4 sleek, shiny luxury cars were parked in front of her modest apartment building. Their polished surfaces reflected the morning sunlight, glinting like treasures in the quiet street. She blinked in disbelief. At first, she thought she must be imagining it. Luxury cars in front of her small home? It felt surreal. Before she could even process what she was seeing, a chauffeur stepped forward from one of the cars holding an envelope. He politely called her name and handed it to her. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a note of thanks and an invitation to meet the gentleman she had saved, who wanted to express his gratitude personally. The note mentioned that the cars were part of a gesture to honor her bravery and kindness. She felt a mixture of shock, disbelief, and a little fear. This was far beyond anything she had expected. As she stepped outside, the family appeared, smiling warmly. They greeted her with genuine affection and admiration. The gentleman, now looking healthier and stronger, extended his hand. "You saved my life," he said simply, yet with deep emotion. His words struck her in a way nothing else had. In that moment, all the stress, uncertainty, and fear she had carried in the past week seemed to vanish, replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude and connection. The family led her to the cars, explaining that each was a symbol of appreciation for her courage and selflessness. She couldn't believe it. She had never imagined that a single act of bravery could result in something like this. She had acted instinctively, guided only by training and compassion, never expecting any reward. Yet here it was, tangible and almost surreal, sitting before her in the form of luxury vehicles. The gentleman's family spoke to her, expressing how deeply moved they were by her actions. They described how worried they had been during those critical moments, how uncertain everything had seemed, and how her quick thinking had saved their father. "We wanted to make sure you understood how much this meant to us," they said. "Your courage, your calm, and your selflessness, it's rare in this world. We wanted to honor you properly." She felt tears prick her eyes. She was overwhelmed, not just by the gesture, but by the genuine gratitude and humanity she saw in their faces. She had spent so long helping others, often without recognition, that it was hard to accept such acknowledgement. But as she looked at them, she realized this was not about material gifts. It was about respect, honor, and the recognition of her worth as a human being who had chosen to act with courage and compassion. The gentleman then spoke privately with her, thanking her once again and expressing a desire to offer her a more lasting opportunity. He explained that he wanted her to work closely with his family as a personal healthcare consultant, a position that would provide stability, respect, and a chance to continue using her skills to help others. She listened, stunned. This was more than she had ever hoped for. After the fear and uncertainty of losing her job, she now faced an opportunity that could secure her future and allow her to continue making a difference. She hesitated, unsure if she deserved such an extraordinary reward. "I was just doing my job," she said quietly. The gentleman shook his head. "It's more than a job," he said. "What you did was bravery, compassion, and humanity. That cannot be measured by a paycheck alone. You saved a life, and that is priceless." His words echoed in her mind. She had always believed that helping others was its own reward, but hearing this made her feel truly seen and valued in a way she never had before. The family then invited her to see inside the cars. Each vehicle was luxurious, with interiors designed for comfort and elegance. The sight was almost unbelievable. She had grown up dreaming of such things, yet had never imagined they could be part of her life, not as possessions, but as symbols of gratitude and recognition. She realized that the gesture was more than material. It represented acknowledgement, respect, and appreciation for the courage and kindness she had shown in a moment that mattered so deeply. As she stood there, taking it all in, she felt a quiet shift inside herself. The fear and despair that had weighed so heavily on her for the past week began to lift. She realized that life, even in its darkest moments, could turn in ways she could not predict. She had faced uncertainty, loss, and fear, yet she had acted with integrity and courage. And now, The world had responded in kind, not because she demanded it, but because she had chosen to act selflessly. The gentleman spoke again, this time about the impact her actions had on him and his family. He described how her presence had calmed him, how her skill had stabilized his condition, and how her courage had inspired everyone who witnessed it. His words made her feel proud, not of material rewards, but of the real difference she had made in someone else's life. She realized that these were the moments she had always lived for, the moments when her care, attention, and courage could change lives. The family then insisted on a small celebration in her honor. Neighbors and friends were invited, and although she felt shy and hesitant, she attended. People praised her humility, her bravery, and her dedication. She listened quietly, feeling a mixture of embarrassment and pride. She had never acted for recognition, yet the acknowledgement touched her deeply. The celebration was not about wealth or fame, it was about humanity, connection, and gratitude. Later, as she walked home, she reflected on everything that had happened. The fear, uncertainty, and despair of losing her job seemed like a distant memory. Saving a life had reminded her of her true purpose, and the gratitude of the family had reminded her that courage and kindness never go unnoticed. She realized that life could surprise her in unimaginable ways, and that moments of bravery and selflessness could open doors she had never dreamed of. That evening, she sat by her window, looking out at the city lights, still processing the whirlwind of events. She felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that her actions had made a profound impact. She realized that her worth was not measured by money, status, or possessions, but by the courage, compassion, and humanity she had demonstrated. The luxury cars, the rewards, and the recognition were symbols, but the true reward was the knowledge that she had saved a life and touched the hearts of people in a way that could never be taken away. She thought about her journey, from the fear of losing her job to the exhilaration of saving a life, to the incredible recognition she now received. She realized that the challenges she had faced were not punishments but opportunities in disguise. They had tested her, shaped her, and ultimately led her to a moment of extraordinary transformation. She understood now that even in her darkest times she possessed the strength, courage, and resilience to act, to make a difference, and to be seen for her true value. As the night grew quiet, she finally allowed herself to relax. The anxiety and uncertainty that had weighed on her for days were replaced by hope, gratitude, and a deep sense of purpose. She knew that life could change in an instant, and that sometimes small acts of courage could have enormous consequences. Her heart was full, not just from the generosity she had received, but from the realization that she had acted with integrity and bravery, and that the universe had responded in ways she could never have imagined. The experience left a lasting impression on her. She knew that she would continue to care for others, to act with compassion, and to embrace courage whenever it was needed. She realized that life was unpredictable, that loss and fear could come suddenly, but that acts of selflessness and humanity could create ripple effects that transformed lives, including her own. And as she drifted off to sleep, she felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that her journey was only beginning, and that the path she had walked with courage and kindness had led her to a place of recognition, respect, and unimaginable opportunity. The morning sun streamed through her window, warm and bright, casting a golden glow across her apartment. She awoke with a sense of calm she had not felt in weeks. The whirlwind of the past days, the fear of losing her job, the stress of uncertainty, the life she had saved, and the unexpected rewards had left her exhausted, but also filled with hope. She sat up in bed, taking a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past week lifting from her shoulders. Her phone buzzed and she saw messages from the family she had saved. They wanted to meet her later that day for lunch, to celebrate her courage once again, and to discuss the opportunity they had mentioned, the position that would allow her to continue helping others while providing stability and growth. She smiled softly, feeling a mix of gratitude and nervous excitement. Her life was changing, and she realized that she had been given a chance not just to survive, but to thrive. As she got ready, she thought about how far she had come. Only a few days ago, she had been uncertain, anxious, and fearful about the future. Losing her job had shaken her to the core. Yet it had also led her to a moment where she could act with bravery and compassion, and that act had opened doors she could never have imagined. Life, she realized, could be unpredictable, sometimes harsh, but also full of unexpected opportunities for those willing to act selflessly. She arrived at the restaurant where the family had arranged to meet her. They greeted her warmly, their smiles genuine and welcoming. The gentleman she had saved shook her hand firmly, expressing gratitude once more. "You didn't just save my life," he said softly. "You reminded all of us what it means to be brave, kind, and human." She felt a lump in her throat, moved by the sincerity in his voice. It was a moment that reaffirmed everything she had always believed about her work and her life. Over lunch, the conversation turned to the opportunity they wanted to offer her. They explained that they had been deeply impressed not only by her skill as a nurse, but also by her character, her calmness under pressure, and her selflessness. They wanted her to work closely with their family, providing healthcare support, guidance, and emergency preparedness. It was a position of trust, respect, and stability, something she had longed for, though she had never dared to hope for it so soon. She listened quietly, her mind racing. The offer was generous and secure, something that would allow her to focus on her passion without the constant worry that had burdened her before. But more than that, it represented recognition of her worth, her courage, and her humanity. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not just as a professional, but as a person whose actions mattered and whose heart was valued. After lunch, they invited her to visit their home, to see the office and space where she would be working. She stepped inside, marveling at the warmth and elegance of the house. It was not just the luxury that impressed her, but the care and thoughtfulness that filled every room. She realized that this opportunity was about more than material comfort. It was about trust, respect, and the chance to make a meaningful impact every day. The gentleman spoke again, explaining how her presence would benefit not just him, but his family, their staff, and their community. "We want you to continue doing what you do best," he said, helping people, saving lives, and inspiring others to act with courage and kindness. "That is invaluable, and we want to support you in every way we can." She felt tears well up in her eyes, overwhelmed by the depth of trust and appreciation they were showing. That evening, she returned home feeling a profound sense of purpose. She walked slowly through her apartment, reflecting on the events of the past week. Losing her job had felt like an ending, but it had led her to a moment where her true character shone through. Her act of bravery had saved a life, inspired a family, and now opened doors she had never imagined. She realized that life's challenges were not always punishments. They could be opportunities in disguise, moments that tested courage and revealed strength. As she settled in for the night, she thought about the ripple effect of her actions. The family she had helped had been touched deeply, their gratitude spreading to friends, neighbors, and colleagues. People she had never met were inspired by her courage, sharing stories of kindness and bravery. She realized that even small acts of compassion could have enormous impact, reaching far beyond what she could see. Her life, once defined by uncertainty and fear, was now infused with hope, opportunity, and recognition. The next days were a whirlwind of adjustments and new routines. She began her work with the family, helping them with healthcare guidance, emergency preparedness, and wellness planning. Her days were filled with meaningful work, the kind of work that allowed her to use her skills fully while providing care and support where it mattered most. She found herself energized by the new responsibilities, feeling a sense of purpose and fulfillment that went beyond financial security. She also took time to reflect on her personal growth. The events of the past week had taught her resilience, courage, and the importance of staying calm in the face of uncertainty. Losing her job had been devastating, but it had forced her to act, to trust her instincts, and to believe in her own worth. She realized that challenges were not just obstacles, they were opportunities to